Okay, so today we're going to go ahead and talk about adding and subtracting polynomials. So the whole idea today is that once we learn how to add and subtract, we can do multiplying and dividing, which will eventually lead us into factoring. And why do we care about factoring? Because factoring helps us when we can do higher level mathematics like physics, calculus, and all that good jazz. So we need to understand the basic part before we can use it later on. So parts of a polynomial. We write polynomials in what's called descending order. That means that we write the highest order followed by the next largest. So if you notice here, I have x to the fourth. 4 is the biggest exponent. Then I have my 3, my 2, the invisible 1, and then nothing. So those are my variables in descending order. Then I have in front of them are those numbers. Those are known as coefficients. So I have 4, -6, 21, 5, because those are the ones in front of my variable. And then my constants are the numbers without a variable. So in this case, my 6. So that's just the part of the polynomial. We're going to put the same stuff together. All right, we're going to add and subtract these sets of polynomials. So when I take a look at the first part, or that first group, I ask myself, is anything going on directly to this set of 2 terms first? No? Okay, so then I just have 7k squared plus 4k to the fourth. Then I'm going to look at these next 2. Gosh darn it. Really trying to not get that sign in there. I have 8k squared plus 2k cubed. And if you notice out front of my set of parentheses, usually that's where we would see if we multiply things in. In this case, we're essentially going to be multiplying in a positive 1. But what's anything times 1? You're right, it's itself. So because it's going to be itself, I can drop the parentheses and write what I see. Next, I'm going to take a look at the last set. So if you notice, the difference between this last one is I have a negative sign in front of that. So that's like saying times -1. So I need to take every term in my set of parentheses, and I need to multiply by -1. So I have a positive 9 times -1, which will turn into a -9k cubed. I have -6 times -1, which turns into a plus 6 to the fourth. And I have a -3k squared times -1, which turns it into a positive. Now understand, I wrote into the next problem. I will fix that once we go to do that second problem. Okay, so what I've done is I've gotten rid of all of my parentheses. So I've changed any signs that I need to. So next, I'm going to look for the stuff that is the exact same exponent, and I'm going to add the coefficients together. And if you remember, we've talked about it doing it in descending order. So I want the biggest exponent first. Well, I have a 4. I think the 4 exponent is my biggest one. So I have one here, and I have one over here with my 6k to the fourth. So I have positive 4 and positive 6, so I'm going to go ahead and add those together. So 4 plus 6 is 10, k to the fourth. Remember, I'm adding, so I shouldn't be changing any signs. Or excuse me, I shouldn't be changing any of the exponent numbers. They should all stay the same. Next, I'm going to look for 3's. So I have 2k to the third, and I have -9k to the third. So in this case, I have 2 minus 9. 2 minus 9 gives me a negative 7. So it's negative 7k to the third. And then lastly, I look at all my squared terms. So I have 7, 8, and 3. So all those are going to be positive. So let's add them all together. So 7 plus 8 gives me 15. Plus 3 more gives me 18. And that is my final answer because I've simplified down as much as I could. So keeping that one in mind, we're going to go to the problem below it so we can use that first one as an example so I don't have to start erasing stuff. So essentially, I first looked at the first set of parentheses, and I see that nothing's going on to them. So I can pretend that they aren't there. So I have 5s to the fourth minus 8 minus 9s squared. I see I have this minus sign in front of my second set. So that means everything's going to get multiplied by negative 1. Well, when everything gets multiplied by a negative 1, my signs all flip. So originally, this s here is positive, but I'm going to multiply by negative, which is now going to turn it into a negative s. So now I'm going to take that times my 3, which is going to make it a minus 3s squared. And I'm going to give it to the 4 too, and it's going to turn into a negative 4. So let's look for those same kinds of numbers. I have things, I want the biggest exponents possible, so my 4. Well, I don't see any more of those, so that must be the only one. So my answer is just going to have 5s to the fourth. Next, I look to see if I have any cubes or third powers. Nope, don't see any of those, but I do have some squareds. So I have negative 9 minus 3, which will give me negative 12. Then I'm going to look for my s's by themselves. And I've just got 1, so it's minus s. And then finally my constants, so negative 8 minus 4 gives me a negative 12. All right, now that we've done 2 examples, I'm going to work on this next one, but I want to erase part of it so that way we can use this side. So since we've had a chance to watch it already, we're going to do orange. So with this first set, I see again there's nothing going on to it, so I can drop my parentheses. So 6n to the fourth minus 8n to the fifth. Now I see a plus here, which means I'm essentially going to multiply everything by positive 1. Well, that doesn't change any of my signs. So I can just drop the set of parentheses on the second set too. So let's go ahead and combine our like terms. I want to look for the biggest exponent. Which one is the biggest exponent? Yeah, these two. I have negative 8n to the fifth plus 3n to the fifth. That's going to end up giving me negative 5n to the fifth. Then I want to look for the next biggest exponent, which would be my 4. So I have plus 6n to the fourth. And then that constant of 2. All right, let's do this next one. So again, I don't have anything going on to that first set of parentheses. Well, that just looks really good. Let's try it one more time. So then I'm multiplying by a negative 1 here because it's minus. So 9 times negative 1 gives me negative 9. Then I have negative 1 times positive 8, which turns into a negative 8. I need to look for the same numbers. So I have my biggest exponent of 3 and another big exponent of 3. So I have 3 minus 8, which gives me negative 5. Then I have negative 2 minus 9, which gives me negative 11. All right, I want you to try these two on your own. I'm not going to explain it, but I want you to come back and check your answer. All right, I hope you were able to get those two answers on your own. That's all I have for you, maybe. That's all I have for you. I'll see you tomorrow.